meeting of the Hempstead Town Board. Today is the resumption of our budget hearing. Since this meeting is a special meeting, there will be no public comment session at the conclusion of the meeting. There are meeting agendas available in the rear of the pavilion. If you'd like to be heard on any matter, please fill out a slip and give it to one of our public safety officers. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gillen.
Here.
Councilman Blakeman.
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Here. Councilman Muscarella.
Here.
I now ask Councilman Muscarella to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call public hearing?
Preliminary budget, Town of Hempstead, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020.
Okay, I have a number of slips on this public hearing. We have Donna Ryan.
Supervisor, before we begin, I'd like to know if anyone is aware of the fact that there's a possibility that we may lose $3.8 million from our budget. Are you aware of that? Not aware? Okay, you have a letter dated October 30th. It came to you, Honorable Laura Gillen. And this is from Assemblyman Ed Robb warning us that the money that we normally get for Ames, which was supposedly set up in a different area, is coming out of the money that we would get from the sales taxes. Are you aware of that?
We have addressed this matter, haven't we, Ms. Smith?
Yes, good morning. Councilwoman, we're speaking of the AIM funding.
The Ames funding, which we're not getting, we used to get it was separate. But now what they want to do, they haven't finished it, is take the money that we would get from Ames from the sales tax revenue, which means that we're being shorted probably $3.8 million from the budget that we planned.
So my understanding is the AIM funding will continue. They are looking to fund us through the internet sales tax. It's going to be, and that's part of the error in the board assuming that there will be an increase in the sales tax for the county. I spoke with the county and asked what's the status of the Ames funding, which because the county is in receivership would probably need to be sent back to the controller's office to be distributed. There is no thought of our not getting the funding. It's just from whom we'll be getting it. At the moment, it's showing up partially in the county's budget, but my last conversation with the county a week ago indicated that because of the laws concerning counties that are in receivership, they would be unable, because of the NIFA board, they'll be unable to distribute that amount directly to us, and that they're looking to send it back. This is from the budget director of Nassau County. They're looking to send that money back so that the state controller's office would be able to give this to the town. I know Dominic and I have spoken, and
if I may, what I would say about this, Councilwoman, is
Well, before you do, I'd like to jump in. So, Assemblyman Robb, my assemblyman, also sent me that letter, and I started looking into it, and I asked for information about this issue, and I received a copy of a communication by the state controller, which was sent to Nassau County towns and villages. I'm going to read the pertinent part. For those towns and villages located in Erie County or Nassau County, the new law, as currently written, has no mechanism in place for OSC to make AIM-related payments in the state fiscal year 2019 to 2020. So basically what they're saying is, that there is no legal mechanism for that, and what Assemblyman Ra is saying is that state legislation is required for that.
And also, if I understand this correctly, so we are gonna make up the shortfall of the AIM funding by getting internet or sales tax revenue, right? So that would be revenue that we're already entitled to, so what the county is telling us that we are actually paying for our funding? Do I have that correct? I mean,
No, you don't.
okay, so maybe you can explain it a little better, because the way that I read it is that if we're already entitled to certain revenue, and then they're going to take the shortfall of the $3.8 million that we are explained to by not only the state comptroller who issued notification to towns and villages, and did we receive this notification? Was it ever shared with the board that we needed to make up $3.8 million because we may not get paid for it? I know that months back this was an issue that with villages, towns and villages throughout the town of Hempstead that were short millions of dollars. I think there was even a press conference here where we had villages. I know the village of Freeport had a big shortfall, and we were told by the state government, don't worry about it, it's taken care of. It was a big celebration that we're getting the money back, but yet we're receiving a notification from the state controller and then from the state assembly that there is no way for them to figure out how to give us the money, and we're really just playing a guessing game to see if we're going to get the money from sales tax or internet tax.
So I'll just point out, Councilman Diaz-Vizito, that at the commencement of the budget making process in July of this year, just as I did in July of 2018, I invited every single council member to be a collaborative part of this budget process. So if at any time you wanted to discuss the budget with me and any concerns that you had for your district, about aid funding, about anything, you were welcome to do so. 0 people responded. I never heard anything. This is the first I'm hearing about this, oh my gosh, this brand new concern about aid funding. Never heard a word of it before. After we adjourned the budget hearing last time, I believe it was October 16th was the date, I reached out 2 different times to each and every single one of you and said, let's work collaboratively so we can have, if there's going to be any further amendments, we can all work together, agree that these are prudent measures, and let's just do what's best for the taxpayers. That's what our job is to do, not to make the budget making process. I am talking, you can talk when I am done, sir. I am calling a point of order. I am speaking, Councilwoman. We could have all spoken collaboratively about the budget, but you chose not to do so. And so instead, you're bringing up things at a budget hearing at the last minute. If you're really concerned, you should have reached out to my office, you should have reached out to Mr. Longobardo, and we could have discussed this all collaboratively. But I think that what I'm hearing is that you're concerned about there might be a $3.8 million shortfall. Is that the concern that I'm hearing?
Listen, you just got this mail. It came in 10:30. How could we have known in July? You just got it. This is something new that the state is doing because we did not know this money was coming from the money that we are supposed to receive from taxes. They're planning to take the money from, you just got this letter. You see, we got a company.
But my phone number hasn't changed.
Well, listen, your phone number has to change because the money that you should be getting for tax revenue now is not really tax revenue. They're going to take any money out of it. Now, I was in Albany. I was there with one of the other members from Association of Town. I really testified before the state budget hearing, along with many of us. We did 17 of the lawmakers there. We walked in with my cane. And the thing is, they said, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of it. They did not. We no longer get the Ames money the way we get it. We're going to get it only from the money that we should receive. I know that because I did call, yesterday I called the state controller. I want to know how this is going to be done. He said they don't have a mechanism. And the possibility is we may not have any control over it. It may have to come through the people in the county. They don't have a way to do this. We did not know this before. That's why we're talking about it now.
So you knew about it yesterday, but you didn't call me about it, Dorothy, did you? I saw you last night. You could have brought it up with me last night.
All right, well, this is a budget hearing, right? And this is where we discuss the budget. So that's what we're doing now. We all appreciate the generous invite. But today we're here to talk about the budget. So right now there's a concern that there's a shortfall of $3.8 million in the budget. That's what we're focused on, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're not here to make snippets for campaign videos. We're here to talk about the budget. So let's do that.
are here to talk about the budget. If the concern is that there's a $3.8 million shortfall in the budget, there's actually a quite simple solution. To go back to the original fiscally conservative projections on revenue, which you increased by about $4 million, so if we go back to more conservative projections, then we can probably fix any potential shortfall. There you go, simple solution.
Okay, but I think I'm sorry, Senior Councilman, but I think we disagree with those projections. And I'd like to call Mr. Marino up so he could explain where we came up with those projections.
Before Mr. Mascherino speaks, it has come to my attention that this communication was given to the Controller's Office just a few days ago, and that it was immediately sent to Ms. Smith, who was your budget director, and that I believe there was some email traffic and concern about this issue with your own budget director, who said that, you know, this is not a sure thing. Ms. Smith, do you have a contingency plan if the $3.8 million is not received?
I just want to point out that Ms. Smith is not the acting controller. You threw her out, Mr. Longobardi, so why don't you ask him?
Ms. Smith prepared the budget.
She works here.
Ms. Smith assisted the controller's office. Those two gentlemen right there are sitting beside Ms. Smith, collaboratively prepared the budget.
Excuse me, Ms. Smith, I would like you to really answer because you're the one who had all this information that you say you checked with the county. Please answer.
Can we ask the question again? I'm not sure what we're answering.
Do we have a contingency in the budget proposal by the supervisor in the eventuality that we do not get the $3.8 million?
3 points.
There is
$3.8 million, yes.
There is nothing informing us at the moment that we won't be receiving this money. So, no, the contingency budget that was $300,000 was actually cut by the board. That's a small portion of our contingency, but that was cut by the board at the last round of.
So you said 300,000?
Council, right?
Can I just finish up?
Right.
Ms. Smith, Ms. Smith, you say there's no reason to believe that. We have a communication, I will give you a copy of it if you like. I'm sure you've seen it already. There's a communication from the controller that says,
Dated, what's the date of the first one?
I don't believe it's dated, but I think you received this communication within the last 20 days.
I will have to take
It
your
was,
word for it.
yeah, I'll show it to you.
I didn't get it till 2 days ago.
Did you hand this?
2 days ago I get this. Now, so you don't, just so you understand what aid is. Aid is the aid and incentives for municipalities that comes from the state. Those AIM-related payments, $3.8 million is in jeopardy right now. And we work all this time and we get a bullet hole shot in the back of the head 2 days ago because you didn't share this with me because I didn't go to your meeting. Well, I had other things to do. I couldn't go to your meeting. We were meeting on a budget many times. This wasn't known to us. Now all of a sudden you pull the rug out from under us and say that, oh, by the way, the aid money might not.
I don't pull the rug out from anybody. I don't control AIM funding. I don't know what you're talking about, Councilman. Perhaps you can call the state controller's office and ask who controls AIM funding. I don't control AIM funding. You don't control AIM funding. It's a state funding.
That's what we know.
We knew about it.
But we
You
didn't
didn't
know
share
it.
with us. You
You
didn't
said
share
Ed
with
Rod
us.
told you all about it.
All right, so basically, from what I can glean from this, is there is no contingency plan in the event that we do not receive the $3.8 million. There's no plan to raise revenue, there's no plan to cut spending. Basically, if we do not get the $3.8 million, we will have a $3.8 million hole. Is that correct?
Mr. LaPorta, can you please respond?
Wait, I'm asking you a budget person.
And she's entitled to do that. She's employed for all of us. The money that comes from her comes from all of the people that live in town of Hempstead.
There is no contingency plan, is there?
The contingency budget was cut by the board, yes.
It was cut by all of
The
you.
contingency plan was cut by the board?
The contingency budget.
We never knew that there needed to be a contingency plan because the state controller sent this out the day after our last budget meeting. Our last budget meeting was on, excuse me, can I finish?
Sure.
Our last budget meeting was on October 16th, and this was received by you and the county. Well, I'm not saying that you got it that day, but you certainly got it within a couple of days of that. So let's say you got it the 20th or the 21st. There's a $3.8 million potential hole in the budget, and there's no contingency plan.
Well,
When I received this, I'm sure, did I share this with you, Mr. Friday? We've spoken about this.
We've spoken about it, but I have not seen this actual communique.
I have not seen this before, so I don't know where this is from, but I did not see this.
Thank you, Ms.
That's
Smith.
when you take control.
Wait, Ms. Smith,
Yes, sir.
there was an email sent where you discussed that just a couple of weeks ago.
No, I was.
Councilman Blakeman, if I could just jump in for a second. There was an email sent back on 10/27 from Ms. Smith to Mike Capabianco, Mr. Mastromarino, Longobardi, the Chief of Staff of both the Town Board and the Supervisor. I have attached the Nassau County Local Government Assistant page for 2020 and 2019. I called Nassau County to ask why the percentage of global sales tax revenues increase is not reflected in the percentage change to the Town of Hempstead on their disbursement pages. They indicate that their sales tax revenues in 2020 include additional amounts in Nassau County expected for AIM sales funding. So, again, the way that I read that,
I didn't understand what we were talking about.
oh, but that's what the email says, so let me finish, excuse me, I'm a member of the town board, I'll speak, okay? What this says to me is that the state has absolutely no way to pay us our $3.8 million. And what they are saying is that they're gonna take $3.8 million in tax revenue that we were already supposed to be given, and they'll just pay it into that. So basically what the town of Hempstead is doing, and what the taxpayers would be doing, is paying for our $3.8 million in aid. It really doesn't make sense to me.
So may I clarify, and you're reading one part of the email, you're not reading the other?
I'll continue, should I continue reading?
No, I would prefer to speak to what started that email.
Okay.
The million that the board suggested that we'll be receiving next year was concerning to me, and I could not. I went online to see what's the basis for the million. At the end of my research, I reached out to Mike and to the controller, and I said, Mike, I can find nothing to support the million that the board is suggesting that we will be receiving in sales tax, in addition to what we had discussed during the budget preparation process. Can you share with me what the consultant, that's what the email would have said, what the consultant working on behalf of the board is using to support increasing the revenues? That was the nature of the email that preceded my follow-up email. Mike sent to me the executive summary sales tax number for the county, which indicated there was an increase. My call to the county indicated that they have changed the way they are reporting sales tax and the global number because they have included their portion of AIM funding. Not everyone else. So if you took that global number, you will be escalating your sales tax number incorrectly because they have included their AIM funding on the sales tax line. That was nobody reached out to me to clarify my email. But I thought I was clear, so I said, Mike, here is what the county is showing as disbursement for the towns and villages that receive sales tax, and it's way lower than what the consultant working on behalf of the board is suggesting we'll be receiving. Is there any explanation? And Mike's response to me was, I will share this with the consultant. I don't know if that clarifies, but that's the gist
So
of
Ms.
it.
Smith, you were concerned that the increased from our original budget, which was fiscally conservative, the increases in the projected revenues didn't seem to tie to what the consultant said. He cited an executive summary in the county's budget, but not the actual numbers. Is that correct?
I was trying to understand the logic for the increase, because Mike and I have worked closely on different numbers, and we go back and forth. Neither of us accept the other one.
Well, why don't we-
Excuse me, Councilman D'Esposito, may I say something? I think that there is a lot of uncertainty here, and we promised that we were going to have an efficient, transparent, open, and fiscally conservative budget. And I don't see any contingency here in the event that we don't get the $3.8 million, and the controller has said that right now there is no mechanism to get it. So I, for one, would like to see the contingency plan before I vote. I move to continue this hearing until Monday, 11/4, that we should have a night meeting to allow more people to come out at 7 p.m.
I second the motion.
Can I speak on that adjournment?
Sure, you can speak on the adjournment, Mr. Picacci.
Thank you.
I'd like to read something to you first, Mr. Country, because you may need to hear this. The Office of the State Controller sent a letter to municipal leaders late last week warning them they may not get payments they have customarily received from the state in past years. During this year's budget process, the state eliminated aid and incentives for municipalities for 1,326 towns and villages. It deemed not rely on the function. It cuts the program to any of the municipalities where any funding represents less than 2% of 2017 total expenditures. Under the new law, all cities and 137 towns and villages in New York continue to get the funding. Okay, now the only thing I know that when I told everybody about this, because I did go to the budget hearing in Albany, the supervisor did put something in the newspaper saying that the government had put millions here in the town. But I haven't seen the millions, so I thought maybe that's what she's working on, the millions that she said the government had sent to this town, and that was published in the Hempstead Times.
Go ahead, Mr. Picacci.
I just want to first bring up the legislation I brought up numerous times, February 2nd, 2012, disclosure of records scheduled for discussion in open meetings. It's New York State law. I worked very hard to get the town to comply somewhat with it back then. It took me 2 months and we got something. No records of this meeting were provided prior to it. All the amendments from the previous meeting were not provided prior to the meeting. The interpretation by the Committee on Open Government is reasonable. Everything in law is reasonable. Now, you pass the law saying a rule for 60 minutes. 60 minutes, if someone's looking at 9:30 in the morning, whether something's going to happen, most people don't have that time to get to a meeting if they give you 1 hour notice. I'd like, if you could give this to the supervisor, please, and maybe if anyone's interested, make copies of it. But meetings, the records that are going to be discussed at the meeting should be provided to the public in advance. Because if you did have amendments, as you predicted, and I went on the council's website, and they are predicting a higher than a 3.5% tax cut, and it was going to be done in a transparent and accountable to our taxpayers. In order to do that, you need to provide the records in advance so I can check whether it's transparent and accountable. If you're going to cut things, I want to see that it's being cut in a reasonable manner. If you're going to add things, I want to see that that's being done in a reasonable manner. If you give it to me while I'm sitting there at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's not reasonable. So the whole process was...
Mr. Procacci, might interject for 1 second. We were prepared to offer amendments today and vote on the budget today. We just became aware of this situation. It was actually generated by the supervisor's budget director, Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, who is our chief advocate on the Association of Towns and is very involved in this and understands it better than anybody else, discussed with us that this could be a potential problem in the budget. So basically, we were prepared to offer amendments today, and we will abide by the 60-minute rule when we offer amendments to the budget. If we continue this hearing, as my motion stated, to Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m.
Okay, that doesn't explain why we didn't get the amendments in advance on Wednesday, October 16th. That doesn't explain why we didn't get the amendments in advance last year around the same time.
You did get the amendments, you got the amendments 60 minutes before a potential vote because we had 2 hearings scheduled for October 16th. We had an afternoon hearing and we had an evening hearing.
That is not...
So you actually got the amendments hours before we were to vote on it.
First of all, that's not reasonable time. The amendment's supposed to be on the town's website prior to the meeting, a reasonable time prior to the meeting. So if somebody is planning on going to a meeting, they're not gonna decide 9:30 in the morning whether I'm gonna go to work today or go to a town board meeting. It generally doesn't happen that way. When you normally post the amendments, the resolutions, are on the Friday or the Thursday prior to the Tuesday meeting. So people would look at that document and say, oh, this is something about my neighborhood, I'm interested, so I'm going to take off from work, I'm going to leave work early, I'm going to go to that meeting on Tuesday. If you let us know 6:30 in the morning, most people are not on their computer looking, first of all, it's not even on the computer, they have to actually come to town hall to find out whether they're going to talk on it, because they don't even know it's there. It's totally unreasonable, and I gave the supervisor the law. I hope you all read it, because that's number one thing. It's a problem no matter what you say about this. And I just want to get one more sentence in, since I was interrupted a lot. I said this year, I said it last year, and I've said it all through my life. If you have a conservative approach or a risky approach, you take the conservative approach and you use the excess monies generated. If you generate an extra $5 million in sales tax revenue, great. Use it for the roads, give it back to the taxpayers, let the people know that there's a $5 million surplus, and what do you want to do with it? Do you want us to give it back in the tax cut, or would you rather have your roads fixed? That's my position. It's been my position all since I've been here, going on 10 years. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on the adjournment?
Good morning, Donna.
Actually, that was my request.
I'm sorry, could you just start by stating your name and address for the record?
Sure, Donna Ryan, 146 Swan Lane, Levittown, 11756. My point was that I am a senior citizen and I am retired, so it's not difficult for me to come to a meeting. However, I would request that it be adjourned to an evening meeting so that all my neighbors and friends who are interested can make it. They all work, so they couldn't make it today, but they would be here for an evening meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Just so you know, for the future, when we have a budget hearing, there's always an afternoon and an evening meeting scheduled. So there was both an afternoon and an evening scheduled the first time we had the budget hearing. It's just that it's been delayed a couple of times. Thank you.
Thank you, we'll take that.
Ms. Meriday, I think you wanted to be heard.
Meeting Chair Meriday, Baldwin resident. I'm concerned, as always, with regard to the budget, having reviewed it in its preliminary state, and continue to be concerned with regard to the lack of innovation or expansion in resources to do anything of substance for our veterans, service-disabled veterans, and particularly providing business opportunities for veterans. 85% of veterans who prefer to work for other veterans, but when you don't really have any programs that are fiscally viable in that arena. With regard to an adjournment and for evening meetings, I've always been an advocate for that, even though I've been told by some people sitting behind the dais that, people don't show up. Well, there's a number of reasons, because for one, you don't really promote the fact as if you don't want people to come. And secondly, it's the time period, and as Felix said, the lack of information in a timely fashion. Again, with all due respect, 60 minutes before a meeting, that's ridiculous, to do that, to do it that way, and to not have those opportunities where, even your, the road shows, so to speak, when these types of situations come up from the state, we're losing more money from the state than this particular initiative, that unfortunately taxpayers are going to have to bear the brunt. I was not part of following the budget hearings, but I was following the hearings as it pertained to veteran services from New York State, where those cuts will also be significant. And unfortunately, it's not going to be made up any differently within the county or the township, which again puts a burden on those of us who are on our own struggling to stay where we pay the second highest taxes in the country, and to fill in the gaps for the resources that we feel that our tax dollars should go for. So as far as this adjournment, again, if it requires the time and to give you the time to get that information, to review the information, I am for it. But I think, again, as Felix said, and he has stated previously, there's always something when it comes to this. And there are those things that do happen at the last minute. But you still have to give the public a little more courtesy and consideration. We don't have the staff, we don't have the resources to support the direct link to be able to get this information, digest it, and to make, those scenarios in place to get seniors here, to get people, other people here, young people here who need to hear about this. The people who are leaving in droves, including our veterans, because they can't afford to live here. For those who have worked on the county line. We have a town and village committee on Nassau County that has yet to date, for the years I've been here, have anything that relates to providing resources on the county level for the town. We need to get better at that. So I do support adjournment, but I think we need to do a better job of getting the information to the
We'll
public.
try to do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meredith. Is there anything else?
I'm sorry. Coming along.
Diane Madden, full disclosure, I'm running for Hempstead Town Supervisor. I would like to thank the board. I think it's important to reschedule this meeting for evening. I also ask that it is better advertised. I was at a meet and greet last night with the supervisor. She didn't even mention that we're spending a lot of money here today. I think that's most important for the public to know. Also, the fact that it hasn't passed, I would ask you to please refrain, Laura Gillen, from telling everyone you've reduced taxes, because we don't even have a budget that passed yet, and you're out everywhere at all these meet and greets saying how much money you've saved and you've reduced taxes this year. It hasn't happened. Also, and I know this is off topic, but could someone please tell me if the ethics board is in effect right now?
There are members of the ethics board that have been appointed.
But have they met?
Mr. Ra?
No, we have not. We don't have a full board.
Because you told people last night that you referred things to the ethics board and yet they haven't met. And also, Senior Councilman Gooseby, could you please tell me, I just didn't really hear what you were saying about Momo and the supervisor's claims that we have been given millions. Could you just please repeat that?
Before, I am a member of the Association of Towns and have been for a long, long time, and on the executive board. And as such, I, along with one other member and the director, testified before the state budget hearing. And we met about 17 of the representatives there. And she didn't come, so people asked me where she was, so I went. And because of that, I'm sure she put in, and I knew we didn't get it, as you can see. She put in the paper where I live. Oh, the governor gave us millions and millions and millions, and I have it. She can't say it. She did say it, because I kept that, and I sent it up to the Association of Towns as well. And that's the kind of thing she gave me, because I went, and I spent my time walking around in that capital with my cane. But it was important to me that we received the Ames money. We wanted to be increased, because that money helps us in many ways. It helps us with the roads, and also we have an anchor program, which we help all of our residents who have special needs. And that's why it was important to me to go and do that. But we didn't get it. The money, he decided that he was going to send it into the county. But now listen, we get sales tax from the county. But instead of getting that sales tax, and he's preying on the fact that now since they've increased the sales tax on everything that we buy from O&I, that's going to make up the money. And then if we get it, let's say if we were getting 7 million, we're not getting that much, but if we were getting it, that 3.8 million, it would come from whatever it is coming from the sales tax. So that's double. Instead of getting it separate as we used to, we'll be getting from the sales tax itself. So that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, thank you for that. I am concerned as well. And look, I'm not surprised about the governor issue. I think the supervisor's biggest issue is trying to tell the truth, and she fails to do that. So thank you very much.
name is Elodie Capo, and I live at 1 Leonard Drive, East Rockaway. And I'm in complete agreement with everyone that spoke before me, that this meeting should be adjourned and that you should have evening meetings to make it more convenient and accessible for everyone. My husband would have liked to have been here. But
So I proposed a calendar last year that had half of the board meetings at night, and it was changed by the town council.
Well, again, I'd like to reiterate, ma'am, that these meetings should and must be held at night, not
I agree.
because you waste a lot of taxpayer money, and the people who you serve and work for are not able to make these meetings.
I agree. That's why I put forward a calendar that had half of our meetings in the evening. And I've circulated a calendar for next year that has, I think, at least half of the meetings in the evening.
You should provide more advertisements as to when these meetings besides your calendar.
Well, listen,
Thank you for
let
your
me tell
comments.
you, the only reason you ever having the town board meetings at night is because I proposed when I became a member of this board. And the board went along with me and we had some of them.
Well, you
Okay,
should go back
I
to
did, well, not all of them, you know, because many people work, some people don't. So it gives you an opportunity to come, various people, but we don't do all of them at night because we do have families too. You know, so we need to be home sometime in the evening because people come and they'll stay. We've been here as long as 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, and that really doesn't make sense. So, you know, we will have some, but they won't be all, and I know it's important. That's why I first proposed them, because the people that are in my district work, and they can't come during the day. So she didn't start that, I did.
Again, I thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on the adjournment?
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Burgess. I'm from Freeport, New York, in the village. And I think it's, I just want to explain, I take time off work to come to the meeting, only to have it adjourned, so I'm not very, very happy. And I think if we had the evening meetings, or a day meeting like was proposed, I mean, it would be very helpful. But to take the time off to come to the meeting, only to have to adjourn a couple minutes into the meeting is kind of counterproductive to me. I'd like to know if somebody could explain to me what that does. Does that mean that now we have a shortfall in our budget? Because from Freeport, we might have a shortfall also. So how are we going to rectify this budget so that it makes sense?
So, Mr. Burgess, the council members have just raised this concern, which they said they knew about already, and instead of talking about it and trying to come up with a solution today so that we wouldn't have to have another budget hearing, they're just trying to kick it down the road to the night before the election. I'm sorry that you took time off from your work to come here, but if they vote to adjourn the meeting, then if you want to be heard, you're going to have to come back again at the next budget hearing.
I'm going to tell her that's not true. You explain to him that's not true what she's saying.
Supervisor, the last I checked, Senior Councilwoman Gooseby is not running for election this year. When we found out about this, which was only a couple of days ago, we found out that you knew about it before your budget, and you definitely knew about it after our amendment hearing on the 16th, because on the 17th you were alerted again to this issue by the Democrat, not the Republican, the Democrat state controller, Tom DiNapoli, and nobody from your staff, you did not let us know that this was an issue. So here we are, ready to offer amendments today, and all we're asking for is a little time to have a contingency budget so that in the event we don't get the money, that we've got a plan. That's all it's about, sir. Just so we have a plan in the event we don't get it. We hope we get it. We hope we get more. So that we'll have more money, like Ms. Meriday said, to repair more roads, to do more things, to give more money back to the people, to cut taxes. If we got more revenue from the state and more sales tax revenue, those are the things I think all of us want to do. But the fact of the matter is, we need time to have a contingency plan so that if there is a $3.8 million shortfall, that we know what we're going to do at that point.
It makes sense to me to have a contingency plan, but I think it's something that should be in place at the very beginning, at the inset. And it seems dysfunctional at some point. I've ran boards before. We know what's coming, and somebody should be expecting these shortfalls and having something in place and ready to go. to explain it now, it's kind of difficult. And as a town resident, I'm concerned. I'm concerned.
Well, if we had known about it, we did not know that we're not getting the money that we're supposed to get. That's why we're
I
here.
know you very well.
We didn't, I know you know me, you know I don't lie.
And I know you well.
That's right.
That's why I'm here. But I think that it seems a little dysfunctional. And as taxpayers, as residents, we have to get our act together so that when we come prepared. So have to come back again and expect that it's not in place. We don't even know what we're going to do with the money when we get it.
We have it.
I agree with you.
Explain that to us.
I agree with you, Mr. Burgess. I'm sorry that your time was wasted this morning. Councilman Blakeman has twice moved to adjourn the budget hearing, and I proposed a tax plan that delivered a tax cut to residents, and they just don't want to vote on it.
No, that's not it, sir. She's been going on the fact, last year, we did give a tax cut. And she was trying to raise the taxes, but we lowered it, and she's taking credit for that too. Now, it's not that we want to work with her, but this is what we have to go through. You know, this is what we have to go through.
Why are we so confused as residents?
I'm not
Sir, I don't think anybody up here is confused. I mean, the facts are the facts. Last year, the town board put forth a tax cut budget. The supervisors decided to vote no. Now, this year, she's been out flaunting that she also has lowered taxes this year. It's not about being confused. We all understand it. The only one that seems confused is the supervisor.
Why am I confused? Okay. The facts are the facts, okay?
Absolutely, the facts
Are we going to cut the budget? If we're going to cut the budget, then this number is not right. Or is this number right? Am I looking at a number that I can plan with, or it's not a right number? So
I think the board's plan is to deliver a tax decrease. That is our plan. That was our promise to the taxpayers, and that's the promise that we are going to fulfill.
And that's what I did with the proposed budget. It was a fiscally conservative budget that delivered a tax decrease.
But last year she voted against the tax decrease.
Where we are right now, sir, is that you have to come back on the
You guys
budget.
can argue later. I got a minute left. You guys can argue later.
Sir, if you now realize why we don't go to meetings, now you understand.
I want my minute. My question is very, very simple. If you have a proposed budget, okay, and you have a tax cut, what is this? First, it's so many pages you can't read it. What does it mean? If it's a proposed budget and there's a shortfall, what does this mean?
More taxes and less programs.
Okay, because if it's a deficit, you got to get money from somewhere. So somebody just tell me, I got 36 seconds.
Well, sir, you know what, they could probably tell you where they get it is from reserves. So historically, in the prior two administrations, there were shortfalls almost every year, and they depleted our reserve fund by $74 million. So that's where they get it.
Well, that's actually false because the last administration added money to our fund balance. So, again, more lies.
Supervisor, I can pledge to you today that I am not voting for any budget that affects our fund balance.
Good, you did in the past, but I'm glad you're changing your mind.
You guys, this is dysfunctional. Because as constituents, as residents, we have to have a board that works together for us. Not for your argument, we want a board that works for every single resident of the town of Hempstead.
So do I, sir.
And I have 13 seconds left. I'll be at the next board meeting. I'm going to hold you guys to it. I'm going to take the time off again. I'll be here. Please, a proposed budget should have a contingency plan. A proposed budget should also tell us where we're going to use our funds.
Thank you, sir.
Unlike the supervisor, I'm not sorry you came. I'm glad you came today, and I expect to see you a couple of days. God bless you. Thank you.
Monday night is night time.
So Danny, welcome to the world of wasting your time, coming to meetings that are meaningless, and sitting here and watching something so comical, except that it's affecting our everyday lives, and that's where it's a big problem. You know, nothing is getting done under this administration. Clearly, Laura Gillen has come in and has been able to accomplish nothing. I dread going back to the old administration, but I don't know what's worse. So I guess either way, the stupid taxpayers of Hempstead are screwed. There's no doubt about that. This has been the most dysfunctional 2 years, and it needs to get to a point. It needs to get to a point that things start getting done. Before I go any further, I just want to know, if I'm speaking on the adjournment, does that mean that I can speak again when we have the real budget hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because all I really care about, all I ever come here for, are the animals at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter. So I'm going to talk about that at the budget meeting. But what I want to say now is this is all very suspicious, because I watched the last town board meeting, and it was very strange how in the 11th hour, all of a sudden, it was adjourned, because Blakeman seemed to think that we needed more people, even though no one knew a thing about this meeting.
Excuse me. The last I checked, everybody, including the supervisor, voted for that adjournment, and it was seconded by Senior Councilman Guzman. So please don't characterize it as me. It was the board unanimously, including the supervisor, voted for that adjournment.
Well, Gillen, she just seems to have her head in a cloud, but if you watch the videotape, it was very clear how you went to each one of your board members and whispered in their ear, and then all of a sudden, go ahead.
Did I whisper in the supervisor's ear?
No, not hers, of course. You know, this is a game that you guys are playing, and you're playing it with our dime. You know, you're shaking your head. I'm not for you, I'm not for them, I'm not for any of you. But unfortunately, we're stuck with you guys. We are truly stuck with you. And this is a big game. It's no secret. Yes, now her platform that she's campaigning on is lowering taxes. And look where we are, adjourning all these problems are coming up in the 11th hour. And I blame you that you don't have an administration that's smart enough to see this. I'm a dumb, stupid taxpayer watching this videotape at home, knowing something coming up the pipeline, they've got something up their sleeve. How do you just agree to this stuff? How does your administration not know something is going on? You have to be a lot smarter, and in the last 2 years you've proved you're not. So we need a smart administration. And if it means them coming back in, I just want somebody in here who's going to do something for the taxpayers and the animals locked up in their shelter.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Does anybody else want to be heard on the adjournment?
Good morning, my name is Simona Simone, I'm from Valley Stream, and today was kind of really an eye-opener on how you guys work. But with that being said, I think you should adjourn it, because obviously there's an issue here that you don't have a contingency plan for. And I understand that you said that, you know, the meetings the first meeting was in the morning and at night, but if you're doing a budget hearing, you should forecast and put in a morning meeting and a night meeting also, even though it has been adjourned. Because there are people, I'm fortunate, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I can come. But there's plenty of people that work. And you know what, you're playing with taxpayers' money. And they want to know where it's going to. So you should do it at night, and you should adjourn it, and it should be at night. Any budget hearing should be a nighttime budget hearing. Because the people who put you in there are the ones that you're taking the money from. That's it, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on the adjournment? Anyone else? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
So this has been a lot of political theater. The aid funding was reported in Newsday. There was a contingency that was cut, and if there was a concern, I wish the council members had discussed it with me so we wouldn't have to once again avoid voting on a budget that proposes a tax cut to the residents. I think voters should be concerned that they don't want to vote until the night before Election Day. I put forward a fiscally conservative budget. They increased by millions of dollars the projections in revenue. Without sound numbers for it. And all we could do is cut back those projections in revenue and have a fiscally sound budget that could withstand any reduction in aid funding. I vote no on an adjournment.
Councilman Blakeman?
Yes, I am going to vote aye because I feel that we need to have a contingency plan because the state controller has indicated there is no legal mechanism for us to receive the $3.8 billion. And I think that it is very important that we have that plan in place. We've heard from the residents, this is what they want. We've talked about transparency. We didn't know about this. Apparently, the supervisor knew about it, but we didn't know about it. So there was no communication, and I don't know why the supervisor would say we didn't communicate because your office is the one that knew about it. So I think that that's number one. And number two, I've heard from a lot of people in the community about the fact that we have a day meeting and a night meeting when we vote on the budget, and that we're not doing that, and I think we should do that, and that's why my motion to continue this meeting is to continue until 7 o'clock on Monday, so that we absolutely vote before Election Day, so people know where we stand, and so that we give people an opportunity to come out at night and hear it and be able to voice their opinion on what we plan to do with their taxpayer dollars in the next coming year. So I vote aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pizito?
Well, first, I find it bizarre that we keep talking about the fact that the supervisor wants to fight so hard to lower your taxes this year, when last year at our budget hearing, she proudly voted no to a tax cut budget that would have saved town of Hempstead residents tax money out of their pockets. So that's number one. Number two is I'd like to ask the Controller's Office to request a letter of intent from the NIFA board as well as the county executive as to whether we are going to get our AIM funding and how we are going to get it. I'd like that in writing so we have an understanding and we can all have clarity and not be confused. Okay? You guys got that? Thank you, I appreciate it. And I vote aye on the adjournment.
Councilman Dunn?
I'm not sorry you people came down and spoke today. I'm very glad you came today because you gave us some information that you showed us that people do care about what we're doing, about the money we're going to spend, and what money we're not going to get. 2 nights ago I got this. 2 nights ago I got the AIM contingency saying that the aid and incentives for municipalities' money, $3.8 million, might not be coming to us. Now, there's no mechanism to make that happen. So $3.8 million may come out of the Amazon tax money that we already counted on getting, that the county told us we're going to get. Now, oh, wait a minute, we're going to shortfall you that. And, you know, it gets so confusing that I don't want to confuse you. I'm just going to say I vote aye on the item.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Well, I'd like to say I certainly will vote aye, because first of all, $3.8 million, I know that money, I don't know where it's coming from, I just want to make sure that we get it. We should have gotten the money that we always get from the state, but we're not getting it anymore. They changed the formula, and the way it's changed, we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know if it's going to be from the, the sales tax and how it's going to be distributed, because no one knows, and that's what's bothering me. If $3.8 million is a lot of money, and I probably never had that in my lifetime, but it's a lot of money for the residents who live here. So I'm concerned, and I definitely will vote aye.
Councilman Mascarello?
I'd like to say that I stick to my commitment for a tax decrease. It's not a shortage when the state has additional revenues that we're entitled to, and the county has those additional revenues, but yet for some reason we can't quantify the amount that we're entitled to due to internet sales. So I'm voting yes to Monday night adjournment.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.